Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Anzac Day podcast here at Spirit Talk Australia. Your hosts are Anne Rekovich and myself, Renata Daniel, and today we welcome Ellen Evert Hopman all the way from America, who will be speaking to us about the work that she does and about all of the books and information that this lady puts out. She is absolutely amazing. So let me just introduce Ellen and tell you some of the things that she does before we hear her golden voice speaking to all of us on this morning. So we have Ellen Evert Hopman, and she is the Druid at the Tribe of the Oak, which seeks to preserve and pass on the traditional ways of the ancient Celts. Now, this lady has written so many books, I have run out of pages writing all of these titles. So we have, for example, A Druid's Herbal, Sacred Tree Medicine, A Legacy of Druids, which is conversations with Druid leaders from Britain, USA, and Canada, which just looks absolutely amazing. We have Being a Pagan, Druids, Wiccans, Witches Today, which I need a copy of. Secret Medicines from Your Garden, and this amazing title, which I also saw, Walking the World in Wonder, A Children's Herbal.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that amazing?
I'll get that one for Charlotte.
I know. Then she also writes the Druids Weblog, which is some information from that amazing mind of Ellen's, and also Druids News, Fairy News, Forest News, Herb News, Pagan News, and all the other newses that aren't in those titles. How, Ellen, you get a moment to actually have a cup of tea and toast, I do not know, because that is absolutely amazing. We welcome you this morning, Ellen. How are you?
I'm great, and it's evening here, and it's dusk. And I'm looking out the window, and it's a beautiful time of evening when the deer come out sometimes, and the stars will be out soon.
Wow.
So it's amazing to be talking to you in the morning.
And welcome to some of our American listeners as well. We've got Doug on, who is one of our regulars. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
And Patrick Keller from the Big Seance. He's on here listening as well.
Patrick, we'll have to connect you two so that you can talk later. Patrick has an amazing podcast in America called the Big Seance podcast, and we've been on it a few times there, and Patrick is absolutely a honey. So we'll need to connect you two up so that you can have a big talk as well. This is amazing. How long have you been doing all of this work, Ellen?
Well, I started, I would say officially in 1983. And I spent the summer at Findhorn in Scotland.
Oh, wow.
At the Findhorn community.
Oh.
And I spent some time on Iona, which is this amazing island in the Hebrides off the west coast of Scotland, and had all kinds of mystical experiences, and people there were telling me stories about the Druids, and that was the first time that I'd really heard about Druids. And I came back to the States, and one of my herb clients told me she had met a Druid, and I just immediately knew that was what I was supposed to be looking for. So I started looking for Druids, and it took me about 2 years because we didn't have the internet in those days. And then I found Druids, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow, what an amazing journey. And so it really pulled you in. It spoke to your heart and said that this is what you want to do.
Yeah, it was absolutely instinctive. When I heard the word Druid, some people talk about the word witch. They hear the word witch, and then they immediately know that's what they are. The word witch never resonated with me like that, but the minute I heard the word Druid, off I went. It was a recognition from within.
Do you know whether you have any ancestry in any of those areas?
Well, yes. I had always been told that we had Scottish ancestry, but we had no proof of it. And then I finally went and had my DNA done, and I was very pleased because I found out that, sure enough, around the Edinburgh area, I had been told that we were Pictish. The name Evert comes from Eviat. It's a Scottish name. It's an old Scottish name. It's actually extinct in Scotland. You can look it up, Evert, and it's extinct.
I did notice it was spelled differently to how I normally see it.
Yeah, well, someone told me that I should be very proud because that meant that my ancestors either all died fighting.
Wow.
Or they were kicked out during the clearances. And as near as we can figure out, because the first record we have is 1760 in Prussia, but it looks like they left Scotland around 1760, which was right during the clearances, and they ended up in Prussia, and then they followed the Germans to Wisconsin, which is a lot of Germans went to Wisconsin in the United States. And that's kind of, but we always wondered, were we German? Were we Scottish? And then sure enough, there was the DNA. So that was very nice to confirm. And I have cousins in Canada, and some of them are married to Scots or have one Scottish parent, so everybody was very happy to find that out.
I went to Scotland a few years ago, and the moment you sort of head out and into the wilds there, it's like you've actually dropped onto another planet. It's just, it takes you away. There is something about it that just is mesmerizing. And I remember coming back out of the mountains there in Scotland and coming back into one of the areas, the built-up city areas. And I remember with the lady that I was traveling with, I cried, I think, for half an hour heading out and back into the city going, I don't want to leave. Please don't make me go back.
Don't make me go back into the city, more to the point.
Because it's just, the scenery is breathtakingly stunning.
And it's so different to anything we have here in Australia.
Yeah. Even if you don't see a tree for kilometres or miles, it is still this amazing scenery, and the feel of the country. Really, the blood of the Scots is seeped into the country, and I understand how they all say that, their heart is there and that's where they want to be buried and left. Totally, most definitely. Let's get on to the story with herbs, because we do say herbs here in Australia.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, my very first introduction to Druids was in England on a ghost tour, and I was taken into some tunnels. At that stage, this was probably 30 odd years ago. Yes, I am that old. I was there when I was 5. No. And there was these tunnels, and there was a part that was hollowed out into the stone in the pitch black, and there was a channel drawn in around the outside of it, and they said to us, this is where the Druids sacrificed the humans, and they put the chalice there to collect the blood. You can see how it all drains down into it. Are you feeling there's a furphy, or some, as I like to say here in Australia, some bullshit happening there?
What sounds like Christian propaganda.
So look, there will be people on here who don't know what Druids are. Could you give us a summary of what that belief is?
Well, the old saying, if you ask 3 Druids what a Druid is, you'll get 10 different answers.
But
no, there's different kinds of Druids. There's English Druids, there's Irish Druids, there's American Druids. We're all different. I can really only talk about my kind of Druid. And I have a wonderful group called Tribe of the Oak, which you're all welcome to join, anybody who's interested.
Yay.
tribeoftheoak.com. We are very Irish-centered.
Yes.
And the reason we did that, it's very specific. It's because the oldest written documents that we have, not written by Druids, but written down by monks. The oldest documents are the Irish ones, and they're from the 6th and 7th century. And the reason that's important is because that was the closest to when the old ancient Druids were still walking the earth. You know, we don't claim any unbroken lineage, but we like the old documents because that's the closest that we can get. And when you study those documents, it's very hard to imagine the people that came up with the old wisdom texts and the Brehon laws and the poetry. And it's hard to imagine those people slitting other people's throats and collecting their blood. It just doesn't make any sense, because they were master poets, and they were very concerned with justice and ethics and keeping the community together and treating people well. And, truth was a very big thing. And they had ethics long before the missionaries showed up. Everybody thinks that the Christian missionaries brought the wonderful ethics, but no, they had tribal ethics, which in some ways I think are superior to anything we have today.
Yeah.
Especially for women. Women certainly had a lot more rights. They had rights of divorce, rights of inheritance, all kinds of things that were lost when the church came in, and that we're still fighting, to get back. I mean, here in the United States, I don't know what you have in Australia, but we still don't have an equal rights amendment in the United States. So officially, women do not have the same rights as men in the United States.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That blows my mind a little bit.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of women think that. But so, and it wasn't until women didn't get the vote until the 1920s, right? The ancient Celtic women, the ancient Scandinavian women were even better off than Celtic women. They voted at all the clan meetings and the thing. It was called the thing. Any decisions that were made, the women were absolutely equal partners to the men in voting. But yeah, Celtic women were way ahead of medieval European women, any Christian women, until very recently, So.
It's interesting you were talking about you found out your DNA and your ancestry. I'm adopted, and I had no idea what my genetic background was, and it actually it does feel like a void. I didn't necessarily need to know who my parents were. I just wanted to know my ethnic background.
Tribe.
Yeah, my tribe. And when I looked it up, I found out that I was about 70% Irish and Scottish, Wales, and a good chunk of Scandinavian. So I think I was the result of way back yonder. A raid
marauding tribes.
The Vikings may have raided. Not that I'm that old, but my clan is the Kennedy clan from Ireland.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited now.
Yeah. We went to Ireland last year. We're hoping to go this year, but gee, don't know whether we'll get there.
We're supposed to be in America in a month, but yeah, never mind.
That's not happening.
No, that's not going to happen.
No.
But we are hoping that in November we might be able to, or end of October, head over to Ireland for a ghostly tour. But yeah, Ireland,
and sacred sites too. Yeah,
Ireland is another one of those amazing places that we just don't want to leave. So yeah.
Yes, I felt before I found out my heritage. When I first arrived in Ireland, I felt like I'd come home. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting how that genetic connection was there before I even knew it.
So women were Druids as well, because I remember also reading many years ago a statement somewhere in a book, of course, that said only men could be Druids, and only the Druids had very sacred and secretive meetings. So there were only certain members of a clan that could be Druids. Is that true as well?
Well, women were absolutely Druids. In fact, I have I have to plug, I have a novel called Priestess of the Forest, A Druid Journey, and in the back I have an essay called Female Druids, I think.
Ooh.
Anyway, no, women were absolute. You can also find it online if you look up my name and then Female Druids. There were absolutely female druids, and they were secretive to an extent. The reason for that is that it took 20 years to train to be a druid. And it wasn't,
Wow.
These days, a lot of people think, oh, I love Ireland, or I love trees, or I love nature, therefore I'm a druid. It wasn't like that. And that's why in my group, Tribe of the Oak, we have a lot of training, a lot of reading at first, and then other spiritual exercises that you do. But in those days, it took 20 years.
Wow.
So you couldn't have people with 20 plus years of training hanging out with, just anybody. I mean, they met with their peers, So and they didn't write anything down, and that was deliberate because they figured that once you write something down, it can be stolen. So everything was memorized. They say that the Brehon Law books, we still have most of the Brehon Laws, but that was the equivalent of about 25 volumes.
Wow.
And they carried it in their head.
Wow.
So it was all memorized. Yeah.
That's
and
amazing.
A druid was basically a walking library. And you could go to the Druid. It's like going to the Encyclopedia Britannica or Google, right? You go to the Druid and you say, my neighbor's cow just came and ate all my herbs. What do they, what fine should they pay, whatever. You go to the Druid and the Druid can say, well, in the case of Fergus versus Macduff, this was the judgment, and that's a Druid. That's a real Druid.
That's just amazing. And I love the fact that you had to go through a process. So you couldn't have a title or a name until you had done your time and until you had learned the law and could recite it and knew it back to front, which is great. Because nowadays we seem to say, I want to be this, and I'll just get a 2-hour 2-hour lesson online and I can call myself whatever I want to call myself.
Yeah, or I read one book, and that makes me a druid, or I pay $25 to join a group and that makes me a druid,
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. And for people who really take this path seriously, it's not like that.
Yeah.
But they weren't all experts in Brehon law. That was just one particular type of druid. Those were the Brehons. But druids had specialties. So you could specialize in medicine, or you could specialize in being a ritualist, a sacred singer, somebody who made beverages, intoxicating beverages. That was a specialty. You could be a harpist, a bard, but those were all specialties. And maybe you knew 2 of those, but no druid would be a specialist in all of those, but they would be expected to be a master of at least one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's get on to your books on herbology and all of that. Again, is that a specialty that you chose in your path?
Well, yes, that seems to have chosen me.
Oh,
it's often the way, isn't it?
The way it happened literally was I moved to New England. I live in an oak forest. So every window that I look out of, all I see is trees and forest, right? And when I moved here, the summers are so short. They literally, end of May to mid-September is the growing season. That's it. And the rest of the year, it's too cold to grow anything. And so I couldn't believe it, because I had lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where we could grow up until December, for example. I remember roses in December, things like that. So I came here and I said, this is crazy. How did people live here? I couldn't imagine how people lived here, because because the season was so short. So I looked out the window and I said, it must have been the trees. That was my intuitive sense. So then I said, gee, I want to go find a book, because this was in 1986. It was before the internet again. I said, I got to go find a book that'll show me how to use the trees for food and medicine, things like that. So I went to a number of different bookstores, couldn't find anything. There wasn't anything. So then I had this totally illogical leap. And I said, well, gee, if there isn't a book, I guess I'm supposed to write it.
Yep.
And I had no training. I was not an English major. I didn't know anything about writing. I had studied art history. So I knew about writing art history. That was it. So in my spare time, I started writing a book, and Tree Medicine, Tree Magic was the first book, and it's now out in a new edition. It's still doing well. But after, when I started writing the book, it very quickly became apparent to me, and I think it has to do with, there's a lot of layers to this. It's possibly ancestry, but I also strongly feel like there are spirits that work with me, or deities, because I'm constantly being pushed to do more, and I don't know where it's coming from. But very quickly, I was guided to look at folklore, magic, traditions, and incorporate that along with the botanical information and the herbal lore. And I've been kind of doing that ever since.
Yeah, we know the feeling of being pushed by something that you can't see, but you just know it's there. And there is this kind of desire to keep going. And even, I personally can say during the lockdown that we have had here, I've had a week or two where I've sort of just really felt as though everything is escaping me, and I can't see myself doing this any longer, and I'm going to have to reinvent what I do and how I do it. And then there's a part of me that says, how dare you even think that? What is wrong with you? Sit down, woman. Have some wine and get back to your senses, you stupid thing. So yeah, it is.
And we couldn't stop, even if we felt sorry for ourselves, sat down on our butts and did nothing, we would be up within 30 minutes going, I've got to do something.
Exactly.
Give me a book.
Not do anything.
Now, what would be some...
It's not allowed.
What would be some good herbal support for all of us during this COVID-19? What's the good support that we can give our systems to prepare our bodies for any virus that might attack us?
Are you talking about herbal support?
Yes.
Okay, well, the best thing you can do right now is you need to make sure your immune system is strong, so that whatever comes at you, you'll be ready for it. So things like echinacea, elderberry. I have just started taking nogal cactus, which I just found out is antiviral. I had no idea. Is it nopal? Nopal. Maybe it's nopal. I just got it for the first time, nopal cactus. But yeah, work on your immune system.
Yeah.
Burdock is a really nice one to clean your blood and your liver and just get that all straightened out. Echinacea to build up your white blood cells. Elderberry builds up your red blood cells, and then the nopal cactus is something, as I said, I just started. And then of course you need to be taking vitamins and eating fresh fruits and vegetables and getting out in the sun, because they're finding out that vitamin D levels, and this is true with a lot of diseases, if you have very low vitamin D, your body has a hard time repelling illness for a lot of things, many conditions, including COVID. So get yourself tested if you haven't been already. If you have very low vitamin D, you definitely need to supplement. If you have normal vitamin D, then you just need to be out in the sun every day for about 20 minutes, but no more than 20 minutes because you'll burn.
Yeah, particularly in Australia.
They say 20 minutes a day of full sun is what, because we are forest creatures. We're forest apes, we're great apes, and we're designed to live in a forest. And when you live in the forest, you're living mostly in the shade. But about 20 minutes of the day, even when you live in the forest, you're exposed to the sun. So just think of yourself as an ape, and a little bit of sun. Make sure you get sleep, and make sure you go outside every day. Don't stay locked in an apartment.
See, that's where my bad is. I tend to hide away inside and get lost on my computer and doing things, and then I don't go out into the sun.
I'll have to send this to my daughter as well, because she tends to be locked in as well. But I remember as a very young girl going over to my friends, and it's interesting what we talk about, because it kind of really goes back to what our grandparents and great-grandparents did. I remember distinctly my friend this particular time, she was quite sick with the cold, and her mother made her sit in the sun, wrapped in a blanket outside, and said, go and sit in the sun for 15 minutes because you'll have to get sunshine. And so, the wisdom that our grandparents have and had is... It's coming to the fore right now.
I was reading about the Spanish flu epidemic, and that was one of the things they figured out about Spanish flu patients, was that if they sat outside every day, they did better.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
In the sun.
Wow.
Yeah.
We also have Amy here who said that olive leaf, and we call it oregano, but I think you call it oregano.
Yes.
Is a good support one as well.
Yeah, those would be good also.
She's a fan of yours. She reads your books and has been saying how much she loves them.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Thank you.
I also want to talk to you about this beautiful book that you've written for children, Walking the World in Wonder, the Children's Herb Lore.
Feel free to ask questions, anyone who's listening at the moment. We welcome questions. So
tell us about that. When did you write that one?
Gosh, I can't remember. That was about a decade ago.
Oh,
maybe
wow,
15 years. I don't know. There's so many books. I think there's 16 of them now.
Yes.
But do those plants even grow in Australia? The plants that I write about grow in New England, and they grow in Europe. Do you have European plants growing in Australia?
No, not a lot.
No, but we do have eBay where we can buy just about anything.
Oh, okay.
But you know what? There's an opening for you.
Walking the World in Wonder started out as a game. There was a pagan camp, a witch camp, and they asked me, they said, Ellen, can you come up with a game for the kids? And so I was thinking about it, and then I came up with this game where I took leaves from herbs and trees, and I ran them through the Xerox machine, and then I just I had the black and white image, the leaf against the white paper, and then I just wrote on there, you find me in the deep woods, can you identify me, or something like that, and then there was a list, and they had to check off each one that they found in the forest. And then, the first one who managed to find all of them got a little prize or something. That was what I came up with. But being me, I immediately said, oh, gee, I guess I have to make this into a book. So the book goes through all these plants, and for each plant, the plant identifies itself. It says, hello, I'm the rose. This is what I'm good for. You can make jelly out of me, and things like that. And it's for kids age 5 to 10, they say, but grown-ups like it.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic.
It's a good introduction for people who've never worked with herbs before. And there's a beautiful photograph of each plant. Stephen Foster, who's a very famous herb photographer, did all the photographs, and they're quite beautiful.
That's amazing. Well, we'll certainly be buying up some of your books so that we can show them off here and introduce people to them. We've actually got a small photograph of the one that you suggested, the sacred herbs of Samhain or Samhain or Samhain, depending on how people want to say that. And for us, that is actually coming up next week here in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's a perfect book for everyone to put on their list here in the Southern Hemisphere to purchase. And I love the fact that you've called it herbs that help you speak to the dead.
Well, that's what Samhain is all about, right?
Yes.
It's about honoring the ancestors who are dead, honoring the dead.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
So how do you use
I have
the
rituals
herbs?
in there.
Yep. Yep. I was going to ask how do you use the herbs to help you?
Well, I have specific, herbs of protection, herbs that can help you communicate with the other world, herbs to communicate with the fairies or the good neighbors, herbs to help you communicate with the dead, herbs to release the dead. I'm just going through the list. Herbs of purification, herbs to offer at Samhain offerings, herbs for funerals, herbs for divination. And with each herb, I give the medicinal properties, I give the magical properties, and then I give lots of cautions.
Right.
Because, I'm just really big on that.
Yeah. You have all of those available from your store online at the moment?
Well, yes, but I'm in New England, so it's very expensive. I urge you to go probably to Amazon.
Right.
Only because unless you really want a signed book, you can always order a signed book from me, but shipping to Australia is going to be expensive. And also what I'm finding out now, and this is kind of disturbing, because I've been selling books for 30 years, signed copies of my books, and I've never had a problem. And ever since this COVID-19 thing, the mail has just gotten so slow. It took, for example, I have a poor woman in England who's waiting for two of my books. It took 10 days to get the books from Massachusetts to New York.
Yeah.
And then New York, it has to fly to London, and then London, it has to go to wherever she is. So it's going to take 20 days for the books, and this is first class mail.
Yeah.
So I'm just suggesting if you go to Amazon, the Sacred Herbs of Samhain, and then the one that just came out is the Sacred Herbs of Spring, which in my side of the planet, it's spring. It's Beltane. We're about to have Beltane. And that these two books kind of go together, the Sacred Herbs of Samhain and Sacred Herbs of Spring.
We are definitely buying them. Absolutely. This very day. And I just want to tell you, Ellen, we have beautiful May from Ireland on at the moment saying hello. So that's very, very exciting. We've got people from all over the world.
Well, May's actually in.
Oh, she's in America.
She is Irish through and through, and has the most beautiful singing voice, and sings all those beautiful Celtic songs.
Yeah, and hopefully we're going with her in November to Ireland. So we cannot wait. The one thing that I found many amazing things via your webpage, but I loved the news that you have, all of the different titles, as I mentioned before, the Druid news, the fairy news, the forest news, the herb news, and all the different titles that you can read up on. So if anybody is interested in any interesting topics, that's where you go to find amazing things. I actually found a topic that you had there on my own ancestry, which is Slavic, and Dożynki, which is a Polish festival there, and a whole big item written up about that. So that's fantastic. I'll be putting that up on a special Facebook page that I have too. So wonderful, wonderful information, and it's just so amazing that you can share all of that with everyone. I'm wondering whether you have something that you could say to all of us at this stage from the knowledge that you have. What's the most important thing for us in this era.
What, you and me or humanity?
Oh, humanity. And
Grow
us,
up.
Humanity.
And us to really be concentrating on and thinking about.
You're allowed to swear.
Well, I think what we need to be thinking about right now is positive things, because there are positive things happening, believe it or not. For example, I noticed this long before I saw pictures of, New Delhi and all these places where the air was clearing.
Yes.
In the Himalayas, you can see the mountains again. Before I saw any of those pictures, I took a walk, because I go out every day. I take a walk in nature every day. I looked up at the sky, and the sky was a deeper, darker blue
Yep.
than I ever remembered seeing. And I just looked at that and I said, wow, something's going on, and then I started seeing all these pictures that the air is clearing. So the air is really clearing right now.
I can see the difference in the park across the road from me. The colours are brighter and more
everything
vivid.
Is so crisp.
The
colors are amazing.
The animals are getting a break. I mean, I'm sure you've seen things all over Facebook. The turtles are coming back up on the beaches, and I haven't had deer in the yard in 30 years, and I've got deer. There are wild pigs roaming the roads in Spain, and sheep coming into town in Wales. And it's like, so the animals are able to reclaim space a little bit. I even read an article about how birds are singing louder because they when they hear cars and noise, constant noise, they hunker down and they don't express themselves. But now that the noise is gone away, they're louder. They're coming back. So there are these really positive things going on. So then we have to think, how can we keep that going? And another great thing is that if we're all getting used to working from home now, which was kind of shocking at first. People are very lonely trying to figure this out. But if people get used to working at home, then that means that they will not be driving around as much, and there'll be less cars on the road, less pollution. The animals can have the space again, So there are positive things happening. So we just have to focus on that.
We need to find a better balance. The balance is all wrong at the moment.
Yeah, because we've been going kind of crazy. We've been acting like cockroaches or termites or something. We've just been wrecking the place, and now we're getting a taste of what can happen if we control ourselves a little bit.
Yes, but can we keep controlling ourselves, or can we realize that this is just so good for the planet, for us to stop manufacturing so much and using up so many things that really we do not need? I think people are recognizing how important home is, because they're spending more time there now. And home is just one of those, literally, your castle, your palace, your place in the world that is your sacred spot. And we really do need to focus and think about all of these things. And I really do hope that those that have some sort of a spiritual nature or a spiritual heart really stand up and speak for all of this at the moment, rather than joyfully sitting in it, but then, when everything gets back to normal, we just go, oh, well, we're back to normal now, the way it was. We really can't go back to how it was. We have to take this as a moment in time and history where we now move forward into a new and better type of living.
Mm-hmm.
Well, every time there's a major disaster, so we had World War II, that was a terrible disaster. We had the Great Depression, that was a terrible disaster. Every time there's a really earth-shattering major disaster, we progress. There's actually good things that come out of it. Society gets better. Like in England, they got the national health, for example, after World War II.
Yeah.
In the United States, we got a little bit more social equality. We've lost it, but after World War II, there was a nice golden period for about 20 or 30 years where the middle class was growing and we had more income equality. people demanded that, and they got it. And I think that could be another outcome of all this, is that people are learning to value the workers who work with their hands, the people that work in the supermarkets and the janitors and the bus drivers and all these people that have been forgotten and taken for granted. And we realize that we cannot function without them. They've become the most important people of all, along with the nurses and the doctors. They are the ones that are keeping culture alive at this moment, So maybe something good can come out of that as well, more social equality.
Yeah, most definitely. Is there anything else left for you to do, or that you want to do?
I know something.
Yes.
She needs to write a book on Australian herbs and things. There you go.
No, I've never been to Australia.
I've got a job for you.
That would be great. That would be fantastic.
You have to be careful, because what happens is somebody will say something like that, and then the next thing you know, I'm absolutely compelled to write a book.
There you go. We've planted the seed.
And it'll be thanks to Renata and Anne.
I know. That would be fantastic.
I think you need to write that one.
Is there anything that you now want to do? What's next on your bucket list to do?
Well, I'm writing another book.
Yay!
I'm writing 2 books, actually, as a matter of fact, at the moment. 1 children's book and 1 grown-up book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's ongoing. I'm never without something to do. It's just amazing, But I'm working with a wonderful group of Druids, Tribe of the Oak. And I urge everybody to look us up, tribeoftheoak.com. If you're interested in Irish ancient wisdom teachings.
There you go, May.
And I know one other person, Danielle, who will be very thrilled to join us.
But so I'm Arch Druid at the moment at that group. So there's always things to do every day. Humans to deal with, that's always interesting.
Yep.
And lots of spiritual work. We have Beltane coming up, so we have a big, because of the pandemic, we're doing online rituals, and we have a beautiful, very effective, I didn't think it would work, but it does, very powerful online ritual form, which involves music and poetry, and takes about 2 hours. And we're doing that on May 2nd. And if anybody really wants to attend, they should contact me. And because it's public, semi-public. It's not for the general public. It's for sincere seekers. Let's put it that way. There's just a lot to do. There's always something to do.
And if there was somebody who is, you may have piked their interest a little bit on possibly becoming a Druid or looking at this path, what is a good way for them to start? Is there one book that you can point them to, or website? What would you say?
Yeah, if you go to tribeoftheoak.com, we have a list of basic books right on the website. And if you read those books, actually everybody who studies towards initiation has to read all of those books. So if you read even just a couple of them and decide you want to go further, that's good, because you'll be on your way. I think we have 18 books that our initiates have to read at this point.
Wow.
But it's mostly scholarly books, but there's some folklore in there and a couple of novels. But tribeoftheoak.com, basic reading list.
And once again, it comes down to knowledge. You've got to study your knowledge. You've got to read the books. It's not just a matter of saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a druid now. That sounds really cool. Let's go and stand in a ring in the forest and
I've got to buy a cloak
and wear a white cloak."
Yeah.
And that's it. I love the fact that you have to study.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. As you said,
and we have a very nice group on Facebook. It's a private group. You can't find it. We have to invite you. But so it's hidden. But it's a lovely group of people, and we can talk about the reading. or we can talk about any world issues or life issues, anything that's coming up. But it's just for people working towards initiation.
Love it.
And then we have a public group called Tribe of the Oak Druids, which is on Facebook. And there's about 1,000 people on there.
Fantastic.
Right.
Well, we will be wrapping up now. Thank you so very, very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been fascinating.
Yeah, it's absolutely been fascinating. And if anybody wants further information about this, we will be popping up all the links to Ellen and some of the information there. Of course, we do suggest here in the Southern Hemisphere you rock out and purchase Sacred Herbs of Samhain, coming up for our season that is just about upon us. You probably get it in time to do a few things for your next ritual anyway, but anyway, it will be there for next year. And check out all the information on her web pages and on her sites. And yes, join up and enjoy the information and enjoy learning all of the great stuff that is there. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Ellen, for joining us today. It's just been a great joy, and there have been so many people that have been watching and been sending through bits of information and saying how excited they are that they've been listening to you this morning. So our great thanks to you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just so thrilled to be speaking to the other side of the planet.
We will send you a copy of this so that you have it, so that you can see our faces.
Wonderful.
So thank you very, very much.
And you've got lots of people here saying thank you. Dana, Jody, Melanie, Karen, and all the rest of them there are all saying thank you so much. May is saying you should come to Ireland with us in October, November.
I would love that.
Okay,
Oh,
we'll
excellent.
get some information for you.
We will, yeah. That would be great.
That would be really cool.
It would be fantastic. We've got such a great group of people going at the moment. So we've just, like I said, got our fingers crossed that we can actually travel by that stage, because we would hate to miss it, because that's happening around Halloween as well. So, and lots of sacred sites and castles and things to explore. Well, can't wait. So we're going to end the broadcast. Stay with us, Ellen. So we will just end here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And, of course, you can catch up if you've missed it live on our pages.
Or on YouTube.
Or on YouTube.